This podcast is part of the Podcast Arcade Network.
Welcome to episode 46 of Paranormal Dads. I'm your co-host, Andy.
I'm Eddie.
I'm Pat.
Join us as we go in search of the world's monsters, myths, and mysteries right here on Paranormal Dads. And welcome, Eddie, Pat, everybody listening. We got an extraordinary episode lined up for everyone, don't we, boys?
Hello, boys. Yes, we do.
Oh, my gosh, we do. This is a fun one. This is a perfect night for this, too.
It is.
At least where we are.
Beautiful, probably one of our first almost summer nights.
It's
clear,
it's
warm.
Cloudless, it is clear. You can see a lot of stars.
Yeah, stars going to be coming out soon.
We're dropping hints.
Yeah, we're dropping a lot of hints. Yeah, it's a perfect paranormal night. If you're in the Omaha area, but even if you're, your own hometown, go outside tonight. Look up in the sky. It's going to be gorgeous, and we're excited for all the fun, paranormal stories we have for you tonight, because it's going to be a good one.
I had kind of a paranormal experience this evening.
I know. That's why we're late.
With my car. That's why we're late. And I apologize to anybody who has been waiting around for us. It's all my fault. But so growing up, we used to go to Minnesota and places like that. And my dad always used to haul this boat on a trailer. And I remember hearing some very colorful language from him when he was trying to get it hooked up to the car, and we'd always run into issues like flat tires or one thing or another with the boat. It was always kind of a hassle. And I think to this day, I do not like trailers or boats or bike racks or kayak holders on the top of my car.
That doesn't like any outdoors equipment.
Anything that doesn't belong on the car originally, I don't need it really. And so, so where I'm going with this is this evening, my daughter and a friend of hers, they wanted to go kayaking down at the lake, which is right down the street from our house. And I thought, no big deal. We're actually borrowing a couple of kayaks from my brother and sister-in-law. And so they gave us this thing to hook up onto the top of the car, and I can put the kayaks up there, and it's no big deal. We're just running them down the hill. And so I helped the kids get it ready to go and sent them on their way. And I start cutting the grass, and not 5 minutes later, I get a phone call from my daughter. And I'm like, this can't be good. So
never is. It's never good.
I didn't have the kayak fastened just right. And for whatever reason, one of the kayaks fell forward. Luckily, it got caught up on the rack that was holding it on, and it actually took off the driver's side mirror off my car.
Oh, dude.
And my daughter, she just drove like a boss, though. She was able to, she kept her cool. She didn't crash. She got it pulled over into the parking lot of the recreation area. And the kayaks are okay. It was just the car that was damaged. But I feel sorry for her because, I think they were excited to go down and have a nice night at the lake. And I felt bad that this happened to them because I know they feel a lot of guilt about it as well.
Well, we always say...
I probably feel more bad about me putting the thing on the car and my poor performance than them having the problem. But
well, we always say the scariest thing about being a paranormal dad is how scary the finances are, right? Especially when you have more kids.
yeah, it's it is what it is. We'll get it fixed. It's not that big of a deal. It was kind of a clean break off the side, and the electrical part of it still works. I can still adjust it. It just kind of
good.
It's currently held on by duct tape, so
it's like an eyeball hanging out of your eye. That head you can still see out of. You're like, I can still see. I see my foot.
But I'm ready to get paranormal here. Ready to have some fun.
Let's get paranormal, man. Next time, Pat, don't anchor the kayak at all. Just hold on to the top of it like this, and then go really fast, slam your brakes on right before the water, and let go of the kayak. It'll just fly right in the water.
Shoot right in the water, yeah.
What's the worst that can happen? Right?
There's nothing that could go wrong with that at all. That National Lampoon style of
kayak launching.
As always, we always start out the show with the recent sightings segment, and I believe, if I do not mistaken, our fearless leaders on this one, aren't you, Eddie?
Oh, it's me. I'm the one. I am the one who saw the recent sightings. It's a good thing too that I used my handy dandy Cousin Yeti notebook.
Oh,
that was his Christmas gift from me. Eddie's notorious for writing in field journals. It's the 1800s version of Eddie. There's a little old man that lives in his soul, and sometimes it comes out because he'd rather write in a field journal than on his MacBook, you know?
Dude, you just nailed me down 100%. Like, there's a tiny little prospector living inside me that's like, it doesn't exist unless you write it down in the book. Write it in the book. Did you write it in the book? No, I didn't. I have it in my phone.
Pat, that was an awesome product placement. Pat brought out his Paranormal Dads coffee mug, travel mug.
Made to you by Starlight Studios. So that's check them out, Starlight Studios.
Thanks, Kim.
Kim Garrison. Check her out for all your custom cup needs. I am up for a recent sightings, and it's a doozy. Get ready. Here we go. I'm going to share my screen with everyone, but don't worry, audio listeners. I'll talk you through this one. Here we go. The Pentagon has released again.
For a second, I thought you said pentagram.
The Pentagram has released again 3 UFO videos. This is maybe like 2 weeks old, so it's pretty darn recent as far as we're concerned.
That's about as recent as our recent sightings get.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to play a quick video for everyone. Now, a little fair warning, there is some language in this video because the pilot, is seeing some crazy stuff. So there's a little bit of language. Fair warning. We'll edit that out of the audio, but I'm going to play the video for you now.
All right.
And we'll discuss.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. Oh my gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS, though, is it? It's not. It is an LNS, dude. Well, if there's like look at that thing. It's rotating.
And this is another video. Look at that thing just fly. They can't even keep up with it.
No, I took an auto track. Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow, look at it fly.
And this is the last video. So these 3 videos were released 2 weeks ago.
Well, I've seen some of these before, though.
Well, and they look similar to the one that was released maybe a year ago.
But they're different clips?
They are different clips, actually. Because the one that was released about a year ago was like a tic-tac, and it was like rotating in the same way. But it was a much longer video.
They just keep releasing stuff, don't they? I mean, just little by little, it's come trickling out, I think.
Yes. Now, Pat, one of those videos did come out 5 or 6 years ago.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
One of those was familiar.
So the article basically is, and I'm going to read excerpts of it here. The Pentagon on Monday released 3 declassified videos that show U.S. Navy pilots encountering what appears to be unidentified flying objects. The grainy videos, which the Pentagon says depict unexplained aerial phenomenon because they don't want to call it UFOs, were previously leaked. So that's where we saw those before, Pat.
Okay. So they're officially releasing them now.
Right. They're officially releasing them. And after a thorough review, the department has determined that the authorized release of these unclassified videos does not reveal any sensitive capabilities, blah, blah, blah. Basically, it says here, yep, the aerial phenomenon observed in the videos remains to be characterized as unidentified. They don't know what it is.
It puts the U in UFO, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the more you read about this, it gets more and more insane. The size of these objects, one of them is the size of a suitcase. they said. So not very big. But the speed, I picture it being a flying suitcase. That'd be the best thing.
Well, I mean, if you have ever wondered where your lost luggage went when you couldn't find it at the carousel, it's flying over the ocean naturally.
It's ghost luggage. It's the worst thing ever. I can't ever keep track of my pants.
Well, and at that size, one of the theories I've heard about these things are that there's some kind of a drone. But the thing that gets me is the speed.
It's the speed.
I mean, they're outrunning F-18s.
No. And there's no sign of any sort of in one of them, there was no sign of any real heat. And the heat was just a tiny little area contained. And for something to go that fast, with any sort of technology we have now, would generate a massive amount of heat.
Yeah, it would generate a lot of heat, which means that they're using technology that we don't currently possess.
Yeah. And so these videos, as they said, as of now remain they don't know what they are. And in response, the former Senate Democratic leader Harry Reid from Nevada tweeted the 3 videos only scratches the surface of the research and materials that the Pentagon has available.
So basically they have a whole stockpile of these things, and they're going to release them little by little as to not shock the public all at once, I
mean, what a weird time to release this stuff. Here we are under a pandemic, and I mean, there's a lot of people who have all their own theories. We're not a conspiracy theory show, although they're super fun. But the other side of that is the timing is interesting. It's what was it, a month ago, or not even a month ago, where the Pentagon or whatever actually was yes, we are officially saying there are UFOs.
Well, they have to, because they're quite literally unidentified, Yeah. But again, the thing is, if there's no heat signature on this thing, what are they using? Some anti-gravity mechanism?
Right.
It's not being propelled through our atmosphere, because that generates heat and friction, right? Just like a meteor that hits our atmosphere, and it's on fire because it's so hot. So whatever this thing is, it's almost like gliding through our existence without any friction, which means, is there a force field around it? Obviously the occupants inside wouldn't feel whiplash or anything when it turns, because inside it would be completely peaceful. Almost like in that movie Contact with Jodie Foster, right? Like inside the capsule, when she goes down that wormhole, it's totally peaceful because it's shifting the environment outside of it. It's not moving through space. Mm-hmm. So
I think it's rubber bands
and
rubber
to the
band powered.
Would you say rubber band powered?
Ooh.
Rubber band powered,
like those old airplanes.
I'm with that. Those airplanes you wind up and just let it go. You ever got your finger not out of the way in time and it caught it? And you're
that hurts. That's smart.
Oh yeah.
Take that digit right off. And on that Contact reference, it's and to the outside observer, she just dropped right through. They didn't see what happened. And in the video that was released about a year ago, there's an Ancient Aliens episode where they actually review that footage. Mm-hmm. And I'll put it in the show notes what episode it was, but they actually have an aerospace engineer and a physicist and a bunch of guys look at this video. And one of them was saying, for this to even do what it's doing, you would have to have created around that ship a little negative space warp zone where there was no atmosphere for it to pull off the stuff it's doing with no heat, little to no heat at all. And so you're getting into that technology that we don't have. We don't have it. And this is where it's the government's 10 years ahead. Sure, 10 years ahead. I mean, we don't have warp, drive, time travel, or do we? Or do we, guys?
Well,
I think we do.
I mean, that would be yeah, if we have it, I don't know, dude. I mean, that's so far advanced. Almost makes you think of, and we've talked about this before, but Bob Lazar, with that documentary, Bob Lazar, Area 51 and Flying Saucers. I mean, he talked about, he was trying to reverse engineer some of this technology, and he said it was light years beyond anything he's ever seen before, light years beyond anything he thought the government was even toying with as well. But I mean, you're talking about a really tight, self-contained, well-built capsule I'm thinking during a pandemic, man, forget the mask. Get inside of one of those things. You'd be safe for the long haul, right?
Yeah, germs aren't going to be able to catch you.
No way, dude.
Can't catch me in my warp bubble. How many times do you think Bob Lazar was called Bob Laser? Like in like hospitals and stuff. Like, Mr. Laser. Mr. Laser.
He eventually got used to it and just played with it. And he was like, pew, 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 pew. You know,
pew, pew, pew. Double barrel, baby.
His personality. Like Shooter McGavin from Happy Gilmore. Pew, pew. Anyway.
That's going to become my alter ego. Is, Edgar Laser. That's my plan.
What are you thinking, dude? He has an IQ of like 180. He doesn't do laser noises.
He does not know. No, you would come up to him and give him finger guns, and he would instantly think you were a caveman. He'd be like, "Oh, look, you're one of those guys." But further on this sighting, so for a while there was a group in the government, a task force. I had it written down, but I don't have it with me. It was basically, the acronym was ATIPS. It was like the Association for Aeronautic Investigation something phenomenon or whatever. And I butchered that. But anyway, the point is they were a group whose whole job was to investigate UFOs. And it was massively secret. And the acronym was ATIPS, AATPS, something like that. And as soon as last year, maybe 2 years ago, our government just came clean with the existence of this agency within the government whose whole job was to investigate UFO phenomenon. And it was actually headed up by the guy, his last name is Bigelow, and it's not Deuce Bigelow.
Robert, is it Robert Bigelow?
Yes, Robert Bigelow of the Bigelow Air and Space. But I'm butchering it, aren't I?
Wild Corporation.
Deuce Bigelow, Space Gigolo.
Well, they also had a TV show about that. The people, there was a guy who left that organization, and he had his own TV show, and I think he would talk to Bigelow, and it's like the lead singer of some rock band, like
Blink 182,
311 or
Blink 182.
Blink 182, that's what it was.
Yeah,
and
just called 311.
That guy's really into it as well. So that was kind of an interesting show to watch.
Yeah. Connected to that whole Bigelow aerospace place, there's a great show on I think it's either AMC. No, it's not AMC. I think it's a History Channel now. It's whatever channel showing Ancient Aliens.
History Channel.
It's the show is called Skinwalker Ranch.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
I haven't got a chance to watch it yet.
It's so good.
Is it?
It's so good. And it's all about that parcel of land in Utah called Skinwalker Ranch, but it has some connection to Bigelow Aeronautics and all that. But the point is, this whole government agency, ATIPS, was associated with Bigelow as well. And it's an interesting situation, but the point is now it's disbanded, but it was like, this group existed, and now it's gone. And it's something's fishy on that one. That's all I got to say.
Something's always fishy, because by the time we find out what the government has going on, it's like, oh, by the way, we had that operational 10 years ago, you know. And that's how it's always been. I mean, we didn't know about stealth technology until the late 80s during Desert Storm, right?
Yeah.
Or sometime in the 80s. We had that technology in the late 70s. You know, public knowledge is always at least a decade behind from what the government actually knows. So
if it's us, well done, us.
Yeah.
If it's not us, we got some fast.
I don't know. We can barely get our technology figured out to be able to do this show right here, you know, with decent Wi-Fi. I don't think that's our technology flying over the ocean. I really don't. So
if it was that technology, I want a faster way to boil water.
I know,
even faster than a microwave.
Create a warp field around your pot of mac and cheese, and
that's right.
Time travel 5 minutes into the future, and it's finished already.
Well, in the words of the weird guy from the Contact movie, whatever it is, it ain't local.
Yeah, that's right.
That's my take on it.
I agree. Those videos are something else. We'll post a link on the show notes, and keep looking up. But they're weird, and hearing those guys' reaction is even. These are seasoned pilots,
right? Yeah, Air Force fighter pilots. I mean, these guys got nerves of steel, and even these guys are dumbfounded.
Yeah, they're laughing their heads off at it.
Yeah.
It's not even in awe anymore. They find it funny because they're just like, I don't even know what this is.
Yeah.
No. Well, that was a good one, Eddie. We'll keep our eyes to the sky, especially on clear nights like tonight, and makes you wonder if maybe there's something looking back down at you, right?
Keep looking up. That's all we can say here on Paranormal Dads. Yeah, and that's an Edgar Laser stamp of approval.
Pat, you are up next with pop culture and the paranormal.
It's time for pop, culture, and the paranormal.
Think about what's on TV these days. You know, it's just television is ripe with paranormal entertainment, right?
Yeah.
We got Josh Gates, that Giorgio Sokolakis, or what?
Yes.
That's the guy with the wild hair, right? Giorgio Tsoukalos. You got Jason Hawes and the guys from Ghost Nation, Dana and Greg Newkirk. That's the couple from the Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and the Occult. And they also do the Week in Weird website. And you see them on a lot of those TV shows where they have like paranormal caught on camera and stuff like that. Zach Bagans, the Ghost Adventures guys. And you go back a little ways, and even like there's legit actors that get into paranormal entertainment. There's William Shatner. He had a kind of some kind of unanswered mysteries type show that he did.
I remember that. It was like he called it was like Unsolved or not, something like that. It was It was
like a reboot of Unsolved Mysteries or something. Speaking of that, there's Robert Stack in the 80s did Unsolved Mysteries. In the 90s, you had on radio, you had Art Bell and George Norrie, Linda Moulton Howe, and those guys that did the After Dark kind of type shows.
Jonathan Frakes from Star Trek: The Next Generation. He played Commander Riker. Did you get that one, Pat? No,
I didn't have.
He was on a show called like Unexplained or something like that.
Okay,
it was great. It was great.
And then you go way back to like the 70s. Leonard Nimoy did probably one of my favorite shows. It was called what was it? Unsolved Mysteries.
No, they did a reboot too with the new guy who played
in
the recent Star Trek movie.
Yeah, so that stuff's been going on, but there's one guy who actually contributed to the Leonard Nimoy shows back in the 70s. But this guy has been doing it since the early 60s, a guy by the name of Hans Holzer. Have you guys ever heard of Hans?
It rings a bell, but I couldn't rattle off any facts about him.
So this guy is kind of like the godfather of paranormal entertainment, you might say.
Oh wow!
He had a show way back in 1963 called Ghost Hunter, which I would just love to find some episodes. I haven't dug real deep into YouTube to see if I can find anything about it or any episodes from it, but there are plenty of. He did a lot of speeches and talks and things throughout his entire career. Pretty much till he died. He died at the age of 89, but he. Ghosts became his life's work, and he was probably one of the most famous figures in the paranormal field. He authored nearly 140 different books on paranormal topics.
What?
Including extraterrestrial life, witchcraft, and more. You can go through his list of books in his Wikipedia, and some years he dropped out like 3 books on this stuff. So it's pretty amazing
he probably had a ghostwriter.
140, dude. You're turning one out a month at that point in time.
So, and from what I've researched, it sounds like, some of them were very good, others not so much. I did see some reviews of some pretty bad ones. He did both fiction and nonfiction. So some of them, it was kind of interesting. One technique that this guy came upon, one of probably his biggest claim to fame is he was one of the lead investigators for the Amityville horror mystery. So if you're not familiar with that, in the early 70s, it was probably like 74, 75, there was a young man who killed his entire family in this house. And later on, another family moved into the house, and they lasted just a short time. It was like 28 days or something before they said, that's it, we're out of this place. There were so many ghostly type experiences that they were having, frightening experiences, that they didn't last in that house long. And so somebody came in and wrote a book about it. And then, of course, they made the movie Amityville Horror. So Holzer and a psychic that he worked with investigated that house. They said he actually got pictures of, like, there's still some of the bullet holes that were in the house from when this guy shot the place up. And they were seeing like halo, like almost like aura type things coming out of the bullet holes.
What?
So some pretty weird stuff going on. But so he actually came up with this kind of unpublicized way of doing things that. So the book for Amityville Horror was written in like 1975, and the movie came out in 77. Well, he wrote his own book about Amityville Horror. He released it in 1977, the same year as the movie coming out. And on the front of the book, he has the words printed on, soon to be a Hollywood movie.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it wasn't based on his book, but he sold a lot of books because of it. So that was kind of one of his techniques. And he also did it later in the 80s on another mystery. Unfortunately, the movie was delayed for one reason or another, came out 2 years after his book did. So he kind of got burned on that one. But this guy received some criticism for the way he did things sometimes. But he was, arguably one of the pioneers of paranormal research.
Well, I mean, nowadays, anyone who's making a paranormal show is just basically jumping on the bandwagon and trying their best to do something different than hasn't been done. He was blazing a trail. I mean, clearly, yeah, back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, there were people who believed in this kind of thing. I think the difference was those who did were not so open and public about it.
Exactly, yeah.
Nowadays, I think society has accepted it enough that those kooky members of our paranormal club, they wear it as a badge of they wear it proudly.
Right.
Back then you didn't talk about it.
Yeah, so people think it's cool today.
Today it is, yeah.
But, back then I'm sure he took a lot of grief for it, but he was actually on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson back in 1964.
Oh, wow.
He was on the Merv Griffin Show in 65. So, he kind of made the rounds of the late night talk shows and entertainment. And I know back then people thought this stuff was pretty fascinating, but, would they say they believed it? No, because back then it wasn't kosher to believe in something like that.
Right. Mm-hmm. He was a positively, preposterously, preponderance of paranormal positively powerful.
Wow.
Eddie, that's impressive.
You're giving the pop filter a workout there.
My brain, I know.
You want to see my pop filter? Look at mine.
Look at his. Talk about paranormal.
He killed a hamster and put it on a microphone, it looks like.
That's a chunk of Yeti scalp right there.
I listened to the show. I edited the last show that we released, and I heard that I really needed to use a pop filter on this microphone. I don't have one to kind of speak through, so this is the best I could do on short notice. So he seems to be doing the job, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. You hit it on the head. Back then, it was like you could, for entertainment, people would watch it, but like to have a serious discussion, to be like, yeah, I believe in this. I think it's real. Here's why. I mean, even today, I think we've gotten a lot more progressive towards these kinds of things, but even still, on some level, there's people who look at you like, really, bro, you believe in aliens? You believe in ghosts? What's going on? Yeah.
I think a lot of his books, too, were almost kind of entertainment pieces themselves. They're probably books that kids could go to the library and check out, because he had a whole series that highlighted the geographic sprawl of ghost stories. So he had one, The Great British Ghost Hunt, Lively Ghosts of Ireland, Haunted Hollywood, The Ghosts of Dixie, The Ghosts of New England, Hans Holzer's Travel Guide to the Haunted Houses, among others.
He did it.
So, yeah.
That's amazing. That sounds hot.
Yeah.
His poor editors, man. I guarantee there's probably a lot of typos in those books. He's like, hurry up and edit this one. I got 3 more I'm giving you next week, right?
Yeah. So
exactly.
Once the libraries open up again, I'll have to go check out the library, see if they have any Hans Holzer books around.
It'll be your show and tell for next time, Pat.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be kind of a fun collection to go after, too.
It would be.
Yeah. Totally.
I wonder if it had really cool book covers, like the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew books always had those cool covers. Did you guys look at those?
I'm looking this
Maybe
up right
I'm dating
now.
myself.
I don't know. I'm not familiar. I mean, I've heard of those series. I've just never seen the covers.
Yeah, they always had these great, they were like painted covers of, the Hardy Boys doing some kind of mysterious thing out in the dark, and there was always something creepy in the background and stuff. So,
well, Hans didn't have time, man. He was cranking them out. He's like hand drawn a little stick figure. He's like, yeah, that's gonna have to do. Next book. Yeah, dude was also an artist too. He did art, and he wrote movies, and he did all kinds of stuff. But dang, he must have.
But he was kind of down on gadgets though. Even back in the day, people would walk around with Geiger counters and think that Geiger counters could detect ghosts. And he was always really down on that. He preferred just doing the field research. He utilizes a trance medium who would come in with him and connect with the spirit, and they'd try to find out their information that way. Mm-hmm. He carried a Polaroid camera with him and also a field journal, Eddie, and a tape recorder. And I think that was about as gadgety as he wanted to get. And even in his later years, he when we had this big boom of all these TV shows in the 2000s, he was kind of down on some of the stuff that they were doing. He said, you don't really need that kind of stuff.
Just go with raw intuition. Yeah. Eddie just pulled up a list of all pictures of his book covers. They're top notch, dude. Those are really well done book covers.
Is that Elvis?
That was Elvis.
Yeah, that looked like Elvis.
He has an Elvis book. Elvis Presley Speaks.
Nice.
I mean, this is probably what got him in a little bit. People were looking at him like, come on, man, for real. But some of these covers are amazing, Pat.
Yeah, the covers are astounding.
Look at that.
That's really good.
Oh, that doesn't scare your pants off. Look at this one. Gothic Ghosts.
Nice.
Woo, that would be a fun collection to go after.
I saw a unicorn. Keep scrolling down somewhere. It was like unicorns in outer space kind of deal. Yeah, that one right there.
Detective, the Unicorn. I'm thinking that might be a fiction.
That's probably one of his fiction books. Yeah.
We know Jesse's excited now. He's got the unicorn reference in there. So there you go, buddy.
Well, that's a good one, Pat. You got to admire somebody who's completely a trailblazer in a lesser known field.
There's Jesse, unicorns.
That's looked at skeptically. So who knows? I mean, if it wasn't for people like that, we wouldn't have all these paranormal shows on nowadays. Right, somebody had to start it.
Exactly.
Yeah. When you're blazing a trail, you're going to have a couple of missteps, especially when you have 150 books published.
Yeah.
It's like, 2 or 3 are going to suck.
Well, he made a living, all that time. He made a living doing it, and he provided for his family, and, good on you, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, good segment, Pat. Thanks for that.
And now it's time for the main mystery.
I don't know if I told you guys what I'm doing for tonight or not, but I'm reaching deep into the.
I haven't.
I'm going old school, not 1950s, 60s old school. I'm talking 1500s old school.
Oh,
so thank God this wasn't the recent sighting segment. So when you guys think of 1500s Germany, what do you think of?
I think of beer.
Chocolate.
Lederhosen, Wiener Schnitzel.
Yeah. Polka bands.
What'd you say?
Papa's fritas? Isn't that German for French fries?
That's Spanish. That's Spanish.
Well, 1500s Germany, you certainly don't think of flying objects and UFOs, but that's allegedly what people in that time saw in the city called Nuremberg, Germany, 1561 to be exact, April 14th, right before tax day. The lovely people in the town of Nuremberg claim that they saw officially it's called the celestial phenomena over Nuremberg. But the townsfolk inside the city and outside the city in the more rural country areas, this was seen by many, many, many people. And allegedly what happened is the people reported that out of the sun came all these objects. Some were black, some were red, some were glowing. They were flying in the sky and or hovering in the sky. You had all sorts of different shapes. There were orbs. There were long rods that were more cylindrical in shape. There was some of the flying objects almost looked like a crescent moon type shape, and some were in patterns. I mean, there was one that was like in a pattern of 4 different orbs that formed a perfect square. But they looked like they came out of the sun, according to the people, which that kind of confused me in and of itself because you can't look at the sun for more than a second because it hurts your eyes. But to them, it appeared to come out of the sun, and an aerial battle of sorts ensued. The people report that these flying objects in the sky were doing battle with one another. As much research as I could dig and find, I couldn't find any reference as to actually what that means. Were they shooting bullets? Were they shooting lasers at each other? Were they flying into each other like bumper cars at Worlds of Fun? I'm not sure how they were doing battle, but this went on for a very long time. And again, this was April 14th, 1561, and the commotion began between right around 5 in the morning, they say, right around dawn. And in fact, after all of this happened, a gentleman by the name, what was that last guy's name that we just talked about? Hans?
Yeah, Hans
Holzer.
Okay, this is a synchronicity. We got another Hans here, because a guy by the name of Hans Glasser, the following week after this event, Hans created basically like a wood carving kind of artistic rendition of what happened. Granted, this is several hundred years before the invention of the camera or the smartphone camera. So you either sketch it or you sear it into your memory. Mm-hmm. But Hans created, right, as all of our viewers on the video screen can see here, it's a wood carving / painting of what they saw, and I mean it looks like there's a picture of the sun in the middle, and then if you took like a handful of glitter and stuff and just threw it all around the sun, there's orbs, there's rods, there's even crosses. There was craft flying around that looked like a cross, and they're all over the sky. And anyway, Hans created this piece of art. It's about 10 inches by 15 inches in dimension. It's currently still part of the collection in Zurich, Switzerland. And funny, you can actually get a depiction of this artistic rendition as a clock, as a blanket. I was looking on Amazon. You can buy a poster of it for like $30. And so it's a quite famous drawing that he did, painting that he did of what the town folk saw. And below the picture part is a writing, some text of him describing what had happened. And he says, after a lot of the commotion, there was a large black triangular craft that appeared and hovered there for the longest time. And then there was a
black triangular craft, huh?
Yeah, you can see it kind of at the bottom of the picture there. It almost looks like almost like an arrowhead, if you can imagine that.
Yeah.
But at one point in time,
but I'm just thinking, like Phoenix Lights. Those are triangular black crafts.
Yep. They sure are. And I guess history repeats itself. But they darted around the sky, allegedly. Here's a direct quote from Mr. Hans himself that's on this piece of artwork. Besides, the globes flew back and forth among themselves and fought vehemently with each other for over an hour. And when the conflict in and out of the sun was most intense, they became fatigued to such an extent that they all fell from the sun down upon the earth as if they were all burned, and then wasted away on the earth with immense smoke. After this, there was something like a black spear, a very long, thick sighted. The shaft pointed to the east. The point pointed to the west. Whatever such things mean, God alone knows. So these objects fell out of the sky. They crashed to the ground outside of the town of Nuremberg. What I couldn't find in all my research is I couldn't figure out if people actually located what had fallen out of the sky. But as you can see on the artistic wooden plank here, they show it almost looks like two tornadoes coming off the ground, but it's smoke billowing up from the ground.
Oh, okay.
And
Crashing on the ground. You can see those little orbs on the ground too.
Dudes, I mean, what do you make of this? I mean, we're talking, 300 plus years before the invention of aircraft. And I know, Wright brothers with the first, controlled flight of an airplane. And I do believe that, there were some dirigibles or some, floating things before flighted airplanes. But still, I mean, we're talking hundreds of years before any of this. And the people wouldn't even have a reference point. Things didn't fly. I mean, the only things you see in the sky are birds and stars and the sun and the moon. Like, what's their reference point, right?
Right.
That picture reminds me of a Tears for Fears album cover. It looks like the Seeds of Love. It's got a picture of the sun on it and all this other kind of whimsical stuff.
Seeds of Love.
Yeah, that's
Ooh. This is drawing. This wood carving is old because the sun's got a face. Sun's
right.
got a face. And we stopped drawing faces on the sun, at least in the
probably the 60s, I think. Wasn't it?
My
got no face.
My grandma had an old sundial that had a sun with a face on it, and I remember as a kid, it always creeped me the heck out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's very old timey. And
I mean, this picture, those cylinders get me too, because you got those orbs, which are kind of like, oh my gosh, orbs, but then you have these giant cylinders floating in space as well.
Yeah, the curious thing to me is, what happened when they crashed. Like Andy said, it'd be cool to find some kind of documentation of, did they find anything? What was it like? Anything like that.
In years later, so fast forward to 1958, there's an author called Jason Colavito, and he kind of talked about this a little bit. And the book was called Flying Saucers, A Modern Myth of Things Seen in the Skies. So, or maybe it was Carl Jung, the famous psychologist. Anyway, but in this book, apparently, Jung, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, but Carl Jung was kind of analyzing this historic event as, an archetype, what do these things represent? And he, being more of a skeptical type scientist, tried to explain it away as, those people were seeing sun dogs, So for for people who don't know what sundogs are, it's basically an aerial phenomena where you essentially, due to the to the temperature and barometric pressure and the ice crystals in the air, there's like two glowing things on each side of the sun.
Kind of look like little rainbows.
Yeah, it look like little halos or rainbows around the sun. But I mean, these people are talking about dozens, if not hundreds, of these floating, flying things. Some look like crosses. I mean, you can't, in my opinion, you can't explain that away as sundogs. I mean, these, you can't say people in 1561 were ignorant. These are not ignorant people. These were these were intelligent enough people that they surely have seen sundogs before. So this was something different and completely out of the ordinary.
Yeah, and someone, Paul, put up there to play devil's advocate, meteorites, but you're not getting this kind of action from meteorites, They just come down and land.
Yeah, and these hovered. Flew back and forth, were apparently aggressive or hostile towards each other. So,
plus the giant arrowhead.
Dude, when you got a giant arrowhead the size of what looks like the Empire State Building hovering in 1561 Germany, you got some splaining to do, right?
We're done
talking, yeah.
The case that kind of comes to mind, kind of what this reminds me of is, I believe it was in Spain where they had that soccer game. Was it back in the 50s or even maybe the 30s or 40s? One theory is that it was like a mass UFO sighting above the soccer stadium, even stopped the game because of it. But one theory was, and I don't know if it was ever proven or whatnot, but they thought it was spiders. And somehow, they would create this web, and there were so many of them, it kind of created a mass of them, and they were flying over the stadium, and nobody could explain, with the sun reflecting off it, what it was. And, and
I mean, some species of spiders do spin a web that basically forms like a reverse parachute, and the web carries them up right to the edge of our atmosphere, and they essentially freeze and then fall back down. So when I first saw this on a nature show, my mind was blown. I was like, what? It's like astronaut spiders. That's science fiction kind of stuff.
Wasn't that a David Bowie song too, Pat?
Astronaut spiders? Possibly.
I think it was like spiders from Mars or something like that.
Spiders from Mars? Could be.
I don't know. I thought there was
it sounds
David
right.
Bowie.
He had a lot of like space related type music.
Well, a couple things we can most likely rule out.
I think you're right, Eddie.
And Eddie froze again.
Eddie froze.
Frozen Eddie. I love it. If they make a statue of Eddie, I want it to look just like that. Just how I remember him. No, a couple things we can rule out. Not a hoax. People did not have a means by which to hoax this. Certainly not in terms of like, drones, remote controlled airplanes, blimps, nothing like that existed back then. You can rule out a mass hallucination. Too many people in too many different parts of the city saw this. And you can also, again, rule out mistaken identity because things didn't fly back then. So quite the noodle scratcher. I remember when I first heard about this case years and years ago, I was just floored because you think UFOs, you think UFO sightings, you just jump to like modern day, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. However, 5 years after the Nuremberg celestial event, in August of 1566, where'd Eddie go? Are you going to try to log back in?
I think he went out for a Coke.
Yeah. And he's like, I'm going to go grab something to eat. I'll be back. In August of 1566, in Basel, which I believe is in Switzerland, there was another sighting where red and black spheres did battle in the sky. So it was like, a miniature version of what happened in Nuremberg. I don't know if you guys can see this, but I'm going to hold it up to the screen. For only $32.23, you yourself can have a 24 by 18 inch poster of the Nuremberg UFO
the picture
phenomena. Check that bad boy out.
Nice.
There you go.
You need to get that for your paranormal room that you
Dude, I was actually thinking the same thing. You can get it in a clock. You can get it in a blanket. I'm going to order that and snuggle up with some Nuremberg UFOs when I go to sleep. Tell you what. We have lost Eddie. If you are just tuning in, we have lost Eddie. Eddie has left the room.
I think it was abducted by that UFO behind us.
Eddie was taken. He is quite possibly, we cannot confirm or deny, but he might be being probed on a spacecraft. If you see the mothership, Eddie, if you're up there, send us a signal. Oh, he's back.
He's back. There he is.
Hey, buddy. How was the probing?
The aliens are on to me.
Okay. Sometimes logging out, logging back in.
Speaking of posters and buying posters, Andy was just telling me that you can buy a copy of that painting as a poster.
That's right. $32.23. It can be all yours, man.
What? Yes. I want one.
There you go. Well, that's what I rounded up for the main mystery. I mean, we could debate and theorize and ponder and wonder, but at the end of the day, I mean, we can't go back in time to 1561 on April 14th and see what the heck actually happened there. But I, for one, would chalk it up to I don't know, some UFOs were beefing for whatever. Maybe they came here as a neutral grounds. Who knows?
They're fighting over all the water, probably. Fresh air.
Right. Nowadays, if they come
here, Wiener Schnitzel. That's what they're after.
The Wiener Schnitzel and chocolate.
Nowadays, can you imagine all the alien aircraft probably have like a giant face mask around them just to be sure, you know.
They got to filter that bad stuff out.
Well, anyway,
these guys are dirty.
This species is nasty. Twitter, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. If you have a suggestion about a main mystery segment or any segments we should do, you can always shoot us a email, paranormaldads@gmail.com. And
thanks to freesounds.org for all their great sound bites and music that allows us to dress up the show a little bit.
All right.
Thank you all.
Stay safe, stay healthy, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody.